Hello, everyone! To those just joining, to people who have been waiting, even though the wait was small, and yeah, and to everyone watching things back on the VOD, whether it's here on Twitch or on YouTube, depending on when you're watching this. Hello, welcome to another stream. It is once again Sunday, so it is once again Game Dev Day. I am sorry that I am a little late with stream today because, in all true honesty, I got a little bit carried away. Are we finally adding the cock and ball torture feature? Um, I can't guarantee anything, Nick, but uh, yeah, no. We got carried away playing stuff with friends. It was mainly the new mode on Fortnite, the Fortnite ballistic mode, because I've been wanting to try that for a little while. Um, even though that only came out the other day, but honestly, solid mode, although there are problems with it. I mean, just as everything will have problems with them when, they're first released and all that jazz. But yeah, I'm trying to think. I might go back to Spyro 3 music for this stream because, I may as well. I'm trying to find the playlist from the same channel that I do my stuff with normally. Yeah, we'll go for Sunrise Spring from Spyro 3 this time for music. But yeah. Today's been awfully cold. We've got a little bit of the snot again. Not that great. Maybe do TF2 BGM. Something to consider. Yeah, I could do that at some point. But yeah, last time we worked on this, we got through a little bit of stuff involving the player. We were mainly looking at like player interactions with the enemies because we didn't properly have any of those at the moment. And I feel like while some of the things that I'm considering for it in terms of how damage is applied and how things are like applied in terms of effects are things that I'll likely do later down the line when I actually have more of the framework for the... Oh, hey Hazza, hope you're doing good. Hope you're having a good evening. In terms of like gameplay ability system, I think like that more of that framework will definitely be later down the line. But in terms of like the actual proper interactions and whatnot, I guess I also wanted to actually try and do things, sooner, so that little bit of the gameplay loop actually exists rather than just, being up in the air until, wow, chat really is really slow to... Really? I wonder why. Anyway, so just to, like, go over things, like, actually in play mode visually, because, rather than just me chatting away all the time. Also, this thing is still here just as like a visual representation of when I was testing a thing with the player last week. I could probably just hide it in game now. But yeah, no. So for things that happened last week, although I think the first thing I'm gonna say that happened before like I get on with the other stuff was the thing that I did before last week's stream, so being able to properly like jump off the ladders now, which is nice because of some fixes I made. I already had things in line for the player stomping on enemies, and if I do this enemy is now dead. I could probably also get rid of like the sphere traces now, because that was mainly for checking whether things were working either in general with stompable objects or also with the enemy. That stuff, for all intents and purposes, works, so I can get rid of those when the player is stomping. So maybe that's just a small little tweak that I make to the code later, so that it doesn't, draw the debug stuff. And aside from that, I think it's on left click. We now have the ability for the player to, shoot a projectile. It's not, the greatest at the moment because it just kind of slowly, and it's also kind of like from a position in front of the player. And also doesn't actually, I don't think it actually collides with anything right now. I need to double check the code for the projectiles, because I can't remember if there was anything in, like, anything specific I did. So, let's see. Will it hit the enemy? Alright, it does. Okay, cool. It doesn't kill the enemy, because that doesn't... I don't have it actually set to do any damage at the moment. So projectiles are kind of working with the player, because I wanted it to be like a long-range kind of thing. And then, much like the Spyro... Could it be an improved projectile? Like, level up / progression, power-ups. I haven't actually made, like, power-ups and stuff yet, though I may have that kind of thing in mind, and it may actually not be too difficult to do with Unreal's, like, gameplay ability system and how gameplay effects and stuff can be applied. So, who knows? I could actually weave that in, kind of like how the old Spyro games had, like, the super, like the super flight and the super, like, breath power-ups that you could find in those little gates, like, either within, like, the hub worlds or within, like, some levels. I know they weren't always, like, in every single level, but there were some occasions where they were used. There's one I'm thinking of from Spyro 3, which was specifically in the Bamboo Terrace level from the second homeworld, where you had that little section where you had to ride on, like, around, like, the little river bit to stop the Rhinox from basically bullying the pandas as they were trying to return home from work. And the reason why I'm remembering that one specifically is because of the fact that it used the super breath power-up. And I remember that one very well. So, yeah, but anyway, as I was saying, much like, I was thinking of the different guns from Metal Gear, or Metal Slug, but Go Off King, this sounds good. Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I could also do something different as well. I could, like, go for what I'm thinking of, or I could try experimenting with them, see what I can do. But yeah, much like Spyro 3 as well, initially the sprint only just acted as a sprint, before. It didn't do that, but this little box here that I have currently visualized, which I don't really need visualized anymore, but now acts as like a little charge, just like the, charge from the Spyro games. So now, if I just, for all intents and purposes, you know, I'm just running normally, then I charge towards this enemy, and they're gone. They've been deleted from this plane of existence. They are no more. So the charge now actually, like, damages enemies, or kills them in most cases, because most of the enemies will be, you know, one-hits. A thing that I'm still considering with, like, stomps and whatnot is if the enemy has, like... Enemies be like... This streamer died. Oh. Okay, that played the sound effect, but for some reason that was... Oh, wait. I know what it is. I know what it is. Hold on. I might be wrong in this. Yeah, no, this display in particular, like, this capture that I'm using for, like, my general desktop stuff was above the sound alerts thing. So the sound effect did play, but it was hidden beneath this. But it should be, like, above, like, everything else layer-wise now. I completely forgot about that. But that is what got done last week during stream. In terms of what I want to try and get done this week, there's not too... I don't have too much in my head right now, but I do want to, like... Of course, I do want to make sure, like, projectiles can actually, you know, kill enemies, because they don't do anything at the moment. They just kind of phase through them, record their name, and all that jazz. So I do want to... You know, that will be a quick thing. That will be a quick thing that I can do. So I'm going to go into projectiles, because I'm pretty sure I just use BP projectile for whatever I'm doing with, like, anything projectile-wise, whether that's the enemy or, like, the player, like, whether it, like, collides with the enemy or whether or not it collides with the player. At the moment... It also doesn't destroy itself. I realize this as well. At the moment, it doesn't destroy itself, so I'll do that. So owning actor. There might be a secondary thing I forgot with the base projectile. Oh, there it is. Cool. Also, I don't know why I decided to just eat a sweet while I was waiting for things to load. That was a silly idea. That was so much like... That was just like a little chunk of time where there was just nothing happening while I was waiting for things to load. Right, I was also double checking stuff within like the engine settings just to make sure that things, you know, were still the same as they were last time. So for the time being, I'm going to close the engine editor, keep the code open. It shouldn't take long to actually, you know, do all of this now, like with all the changes that I've made with like having the extra like the new SSD and, you know, actually having things compile a lot faster. At the moment, set owning actor, I don't... So if I go into set owning actor, so this is set. So I don't need the player open now that I know this, because I know that that's working. And in the blueprint of that, or the blueprint instance of the projectile, we do have it calling applied damage, which if... It should be... Hold on, where is enemy? Should be in the base enemy. Void, destroy enemy. Right, so charging into stomp object. Oh, right. So take, damn it. Right. So destroy enemy. And I want that to happen for now until like I have things a little bit worked out a little bit more later down the line. It may or may not change, who knows. But that's one small change. Which, you know, it's kind of weird that I forgot to do that, but that's fine. That's fine. So I'm going to quickly build the project. It shouldn't take too long. And hopefully this really doesn't take too long. So then again, because it's the first oh, never mind! Oh! That deleted that enemy. And... oh yeah, no, now I remember. If it's all about... yep, there we go. Right, so projectiles work, or projectiles now kill enemies, which is good. Now, one thing that I've been meaning to do, I mean, I already have the scene for it made, so let's just go into, no, not there, maps, main menu. Right, so one thing we don't have at the moment, which is really kind of silly for me neglecting for a while, is like a little bit of a main menu. And while it, at this stage, it probably won't be like, you know, a main menu full of all the bells and whistles, like, you know, play, settings, and everything, but... it will still essentially be, you know, basic outline kind of thing. So, for all intents and purposes, I may need to look at another project to see what it was exactly that I did the last time that I made the main menu, because I never have this stuff, like, in my head, if that makes sense. So, Clip Studio is open. There we go. So I'm going to close the engine again. And I'm going to find a project that I worked on where I actually had a main menu. So... whew. So I get the feeling that because this project is on my HDD and not on my SSD, this is going to be, you know, this is going to take too long to load, but... and the reason why I'm at least mildly emphasizing the importance of having a main menu, and we're gonna, you know, do our funny little doodles here just to... oh, that was weird. I didn't realize tab did that include... right, the more you know. And the reason why I'm kind of emphasizing the importance of this kind of stuff, within the, like, within the project, or within the context of the project, is because rather than, like, the actual gameplay loop, where, you know, you have the sort of S to S, M to M, and then H to H. So, second to second, minute to minute, hour to hour. That, you know, these little terms define a gameplay loop. What I'm about to say is completely different from this. Why I'm emphasizing the importance of having the main menu is because it's essentially an integral part of the actual game loop. And what do I mean by this? So we have the main menu. So we have the main menu where the player comes in when they load up the game, either for the very first time or on subsequent, you know, like boots or anything like that. Then they have the game, and then whatever happens within, like, the gameplay loop happens, you know, within this little area. And from the game to the main, so from the main menu to the game, and you also need from the game to the main menu, so you need the ability to, like, save, quit, etc., as well as, like, you know, having the settings. That would also involve having a pause menu. We do not have a pause menu either at the moment, so one important thing would definitely to be make a pause menu. So in terms of what I want to do, at the very least, for the sake of the game loop, is main menu, which is the main thing we'll be working on, and then also pause menu. Now, while this is a little less oriented around, like, you know, actually doing, like, tweaks to the gameplay itself, this is still pretty important, especially, like, if I ever want to push out a demo for people to playtest. This kind of stuff needs to exist. I can't really, you know, make a little playtesting kind of thing in good faith when all the game will do at this stage is just thrust the player into the gameplay. That's not really a good thing. And I think that kind of happened with some of the little projects I had to work on back at university. I never, like, at the very least in Unreal, not my Unity stuff, because my Unity stuff back at university actually had menus and stuff, and, you know, actually facilitated the player going into the game and, you know, quitting the game as well. Though those Unity projects had that, my Unreal projects that I worked on back at university, they do not have that whatsoever. They did not have a main menu, they did not have a pause menu, they did not have a way for the player to navigate from the main menu into the game and from the game back to the main menu and whatnot. That was non-existent for those, and it was kind of to its detriment, really, because I feel like for one of them in particular, which was very... It was essentially, you know, like, recreate, like, the first little bit of Metal Gear Solid within Unreal, you know, just to learn the basics of, you know, like, blueprinting, programming in Unreal, how to use, like, animation blueprints and whatnot, anim montages and the like, disabling and re-enabling colliders and whatnot. It was one of those kind of projects where, like, oh, you're going to learn how to use this engine by remaking something from a very popular game. And, a very iconic game, I'd say. I have not played Metal Gear Solid myself. I think I have made this point before, but I do want to eventually. Getting the Metal Gear Solid 1 through 3 collection probably would be a good idea for that. So I will try and aim to get that at some point. But, you know, for that project, of course the important thing would be to, like, explain how the player plays the game, you know, their goal, you know, like, especially for, like, a little assignment project, what the controls are. I did that within, like, a little sort of pop-up that appears within the game itself, and not, you know, have it be like a controls menu on, like, the main menu, or a tutorial for that matter. And I do want to do a proper tutorial as well. I want to be able to have it be context-based, rather than, you know, just, like, either, you know, just putting things down in the world, or, you know, writing it down in a menu or something. I want it to actually be properly taught, when I can get around to it, of course. But yeah, no, that game did not have a main menu. That project did not have a main menu, sadly. And I feel like it was kind of to its detriment. Once again, it was one of those projects that threw the player in. Same with the one other Unreal Engine project that I worked on during my second year of university. And also the one Unreal Engine project I worked on in my final year of university. All of them just kind of threw the player in. They didn't really have, like, a thing that sort of, like, let the player prepare and learn, like, understand how things worked. And it wasn't really friendly, so... My main aim is basically to kind of sort that out. you know, main aims and stuff, kind of. And then any extra bits we do, that will be a plus. So and every so often, I keep picking out another sweet from my. I swear to God. Also, ad break is happening soon. Gonna throw that up there because it may have already started for people. Who knows? And also, from what I learned from the other day, it may sometimes not do the whole 3 minutes. So that's why I'm doing it now. But yeah, main aims, and while I'm still waiting for this damn other project to load up because it's on a hard disk drive, there's a lot of stuff in that project, and because it's not on a faster type of storage, it's going to take forever, sadly. So, you know, problems there. Cool, right. This project is taking its time to load. I'm probably not gonna switch over to this because I think from when I was doing like helping stuff, I was not allowed to do and show, so I can't really show it. So I'm just, you know, checking some bits, checking the main menu mostly. So there was a player start in this place. In the world settings, there was. Alright, cool. So there was specifically mode made for the main menu. So there was a game mode made specifically for the main menu. There was a pawn class specifically made for this scene. So and also a widget specifically made for it. But that's just normal stuff. There's going to be a widget made specifically for the main menu. I don't think that this type of, like, I don't think the main menu widget really needs to be a child of the Twitch prototype, like, user widget class that was made, so that doesn't really need to happen. There are, like, I'm also going to take a picture of the level blueprint in the thing so I can remember things. Even though it will probably only be I temporarily remember this and then I forget again. So yeah, I've finished looking at that thing, I believe. Oh, wait. Should also take a look at the widget just before I do anything else. Also, welcome back, chat. We'll be going back into the project soon. I'm just still getting some things. There was unhovered. Button click. Says enable. Oh yeah, there was two main. Cool. Right. Okay. So there was that, and then there was the HUDs. And then there was a UI fade widget, which essentially just. Oh god. I'm looking at this and I realize, oh geez, this looks kind of messy. Okay, cool. I think I'll take just it's the same like logic on both sides of like this thing. So I'm just gonna take pictures of the one path and I can just really apply it in the same direction again. Anyway, I'm gonna recompile in like the main project so we can just quickly get that back up rather than going into the launcher and then loading things back up from there. So, you know, quick things. Cool. For the time being, and I really chose to eat another one. God damn it. But anyway, for the time being, since we'll be doing like all the widget stuff in Unreal, there really isn't much need to like have the code open, but we'll just keep it open when we need to anyway. And also, it's probably best to keep it open considering the fact that this instance of the editor is running off of the code, off of Rider itself. So if I closed Rider, it would probably close the engine. So probably best not to do that. So cool. Anyway, so we're gonna probably work on getting the UI fade widget done first, because that will probably not take as long, because there isn't really too much that I'm sort of thinking of for this. It's really easy. So also, I realized I haven't done like UI work in the engine on stream before, so this is kind of, it's a little bit of it, not like an extensive amount on like, you know, making an actual HUD for the player, like their health and everything, but for now, call it a taste, I guess. So on the canvas panel, we're going to have an image. This image will be anchored to the center. We will set the position to 0. And at the moment, it doesn't look right because it's not fully centered. So we'll do the alignment to 0.5 and 0.5 on the Y. So now it's smack bang right in the middle there. So all we really need to do is 20. So I'll set size X to 2000. So it just sort of stretches beyond like the boundaries of the screen. And then say 1000 200 for the Y, so that's just kind of there. And now there was something I'm thinking of, so accessibility, that's not it. Advanced. Oh yeah, no, now I remember. Self and all children not hit testable. Cool. That's an important setting to change, because by default, like, parts of a UI widget are essentially hit testable. So if you, like, for example, if it was hit testable and you were to click on, like, the screen, if this was, like, overlaying it, even if it was, like, set to be, like, entirely transparent, it would still block this. Like, it would still block the input. So say, for example, you had, like, the actual main menu widget on one layer, and you had this on a layer just above it. If this is not set to non-hit testable, like for the image at the very least, and you're trying to click on the button, this will block that click, and the button won't be clicked. So it's kind of an inconvenience. So the good thing to do is to set it to not hit testable as you're making it, so you don't forget to do it. It's just kind of, you know, already set. So these things probably look confusing to people who don't know what they are. Pre-construct, I believe, from what I remember, is essentially, it can basically happen outside of play mode. So anything that's kind of like values that are changed, it will just be, you know, updated before, like, it would just be updated in, like, as you're editing stuff. So if we had, like, a method that was to update an icon for a thing, and we have a variable that takes in, like, oh, this is the icon we want to set it to, and or what we want to set the icon image to, and then within, like, pre-construct, as soon as that like image variable is changed, it would update the image itself to be that icon. It's difficult when I'm explaining it out loud like this, but it's when you actually sort of go into it, it's actually fairly simple. Construct is essentially a begin play for widgets. It's essentially begin play. So anything that happens, like, when, you know, this object is made, basically that stuff happens. And then tick basically functions the same way, or in a similar manner as a tick would within regular code, within a regular blueprint, or within C++. Tick still functions, except for my geometry, which is the space allotted for this widget. I haven't gone too far into this, so I wouldn't entirely know what this does, but in delta time is still, you know, the time that's passed since, like, the last tick. So, or essentially since, like, the last frame of gameplay. Anyway, the main thing we want to do is we do want to make a variable. No, not a variable. We do want to make a function. So we're going to make a function. We're going to call this set fade opacity. And we do need an input. We do need delta time, because for the effect that we want to try and, so in delta time, so for the effect that we want to achieve, we do need to like do it over time rather than instantly, because otherwise it will just instantly, like, boop, and go from black to transparent, and from transparent to black if we're, like, loading into a thing. And then, like, if we're loading out of a thing or loading into a thing, that's not really good. That doesn't really look good. So then, oh wait, whoops, I did not mean to close the event graph. Whoops. In the event graph, we're just gonna do set fade opacity here. We're gonna, link it up via the tick function, and we're going to connect in delta time here. So that's things done on this side, kind of, but we also do need to set alpha target. So we need an alpha target variable, and I do want it to be public, so it can be set like whenever like a button is pressed that needs to have the game transition from gameplay to the main menu, or from the main menu into gameplay, or something along those lines, or you enter a loading area for a zone and you don't want the player to see the loading or anything like that. Basically, this variable essentially stores what that's going to be for the sake of, you know, we're going to have this move towards this, and if it's like in the case of alpha target is set to 1, if it's like greater than or equal to, we'll just keep setting it to 1, or if it's less than or equal to 0 in the event that it's set to 0, then we just set like the opacity to 0, and that's basically it. So next we're going to see, well, we're not going to do anything with this yet. Also, one thing that I'm properly learning like to appreciate is if you're in a function, if you have an input parameter, you can just get that like anywhere within this function, rather than having to drag off the connector pin and then like create the branches for them. So it's very helpful to do that. So, you know, just like dragging a variable out like this and saying get and whatnot. So if we say, first we're going to check if it's equal to 0, and we're going to have a branch. So this is kind of similar to some other things that we've already set up in terms of like structure of like having a branch, but what we're going to do is kind of different. And as I said, now, I can't remember if I actually had to set the opacity of the image or of the canvas itself. I can't remember. Also, I'm going to take a quick break to go sort things out, go to the bathroom, get a drink and everything, just so I have enough, like, for the rest of the stream, or for at least a bit longer. So, I'll be right back. I won't be too long. Just hang tight. See you in a little moment. And we're back, sorry about that. Also, I fully realized, it's been almost a year since I redesigned, oh, hold on. Yeah, it's been almost a year since I redesigned, my Starting Soon and my mainstream UI, but I still haven't done anything for the, the Be Right Back screen, which is kind of funny. I need to get on that at some point. And by at some point, I mean really soon. Also, I realize, or I just found a thing where, you know, like Spotify Wrapped, and, you know, how that's a big thing that everyone waits for every year. Now everyone from, like, different fandoms and stuff, or different websites, have essentially just made, you know, their own version of things. Which is kind of insane. Like, there was one for AO3, at the very least, from what I hear from my friends. There is also one for Destiny 2. People have made one for Destiny 2, which is kind of cool. So I'm gonna look at that in a bit. But, back onto this. So, in Delta Time, so if stuff is, or if the alpha target is 0 or not, then we'll do either thing depending on what it is set to. Oh wait, no, I remember there was another thing that I need for a variable. I didn't mean to go back out here. I meant to go into the event graph. So not only is there an alpha target, there needs to be a fade rate. And I don't know if I'll set that to public. I may just make that like a fade rate of 2 over time. So go into fade opacity, we get I also need to make the, I don't know if that if it actually works for the if it's only the canvas or if the image. So get image, render. Oh. So we're gonna get the render opacity first from the image. And we're gonna have in delta time multiply, and we're gonna get the fade rate we just made. And we're going to multiply in delta time by that. And then we're going to minus... So if it's... If it's not equal to 0, we're going to add. So we're going to get the render opacity. We're going to add to it. And then we're going to set the render opacity. So set render opacity. And then we go down here, we connect this, so we make sure it's actually happening. And I didn't mean to set it to that, I meant to set it to this. Whoops. And then we check if the render opacity, so we're going to grab this here, we're going to check if it's greater than or equal to the fade target, or the alpha target. So we're going to get this, check that, we're going to go into the branch, see if this is true or not. And if it is, we're going to grab the image, set render opacity, and we're just going to keep setting it to 1. We don't want it to go any higher, and I don't believe it can go any higher, but this is just essentially a precaution just in case, so it just keeps it at that same value. And we essentially do this, but in the opposite direction for the one up here. So, get image, get render opacity, we subtract from this, so we get the fade rate, we get, if it will right click, get in delta time, and we multiply again, so same as we did before. We're essentially doing the same calculation again, and I know I could actually probably make a pure function that just returns the result for this, but I get the feeling that it would be awkward to set up like that within a function, because that would entirely rely on this function to work. So I won't do that. That would be weird. And then we're just gonna set render opacity, and we're just gonna set it to this value here. Connect it, and then again. Yep. And then check. So less than or equal to, because if we're subtracting it, we're going to check if it's less than or equal to 0, because 0 would be the target in this case. We're going to make that a branch, or not a branchy, a branch. So, you know, that's actually checking to see if this is true or false. And if it's true, same as before, get the image, set render opacity, and that's just going to be continuously set to 0, so it doesn't go like further down to like the minuses and whatnot. Although I don't think it can. As I said, this is just a precautionary measure just in case. So this is just always happening, which is not the best thing, I guess, but again, this works. Though I feel like for performance's sake, it could be improved upon. So yeah, that's the fading UI bit done. And now we need to actually make the main menu UI. So once again, we're going to get a canvas panel. And I know there's other stuff, there's like overlays and boxes and all that jazz, but we're not really concerned with that stuff at the moment. We're going to do screen size, we're going to fill screen. I don't have a name for this project at the moment, so I'm going to get text. And I know that I want the platformer to be like based on the rat character that I made previously, and I really do want to do that. So perhaps, you know, we'll just call it Rat Plat or Rat Platformer, just as like a little like in-dev like name to use for the time being, not permanently, but for the time being. I'm gonna make sure that this is aligned properly. Gonna extend it so that the text box is pretty big, like horizontally, and kind of big vertically. We're just gonna go for a 100 on the vertical, and then for the text font, or for the text justification center, actually, I don't think we need it to be, you know, that big. Though, then again, it depends on the font size. I might, you know, increase it quite a bit so it's easily readable. So we're going to set it to 80. There we go. This is where I think we actually do need the text box to be quite a bit larger. So we're going to go for 500. And set it. Oh, wait, no, not 500. 300 is probably still okay. No, 200. 200 still okay. And then we'll extend the size X to say 1200 just in case. We're going to shift the position. I'm going to shift it up by, you know, going into the negatives. I'm going to go 400? Yeah, 400 seems okay. And then for the text, just going to be rat platformer. That's all I have for, like, a code name for it at the moment. I don't have anything, you know, unique and stuff. But, yeah. Then we just need buttons, so... And we can put text on these buttons. They do act, I guess, as like mini canvases, mini overlays and stuff. So we're going to call this Hello Heater. I'm guessing you're no longer playing Fort. Right, we're going to call this the play button. We're going to set the alignment properly. You are not. Sag. Were you still having fun playing Ballistic when I left, or... And we're going to have the anchor be in the middle so we can get this aligned properly. But you are modding for Bossman. Oh, okay. But I have your chat on your... Holy, on the chat arena. I never thought I'd see the day. Right, we're going to set that to 300. We're going to move it up. Oh, wait, that's moving it off to the right. Gonna move it up here so that bouton is right there. We'll make it a flat minus 160, and then we're gonna also, to be fair, I may as well duplicate this button. So duplicate button, call it quit button. At the moment we don't have like settings or anything like that, but that will probably definitely be... We've had one absolutely shit-ass... I get the feeling that because of, you know, Fortnite's audience, there's definitely a strong issue with stuff on that front. We're probably not really going to get, you know, many good teams, considering the audience. Which kind of sucks. Dudes were treating it like TD Team Deathmatch and running around with a fucking bomb instead of placing it. How dumb. I hate when you have, like, objective-based games and then people do not play the objective. It's annoying. Really? You're not playing the objective. Let someone else actually do it, like Christ on a bike. Also, sorry, I decided to be silly and eat another sweet. You can really tell that because like, I know... I'm just gonna flat out say it. But because of the audience that has, like, very much made its home on the game, it's definitely a detriment to wanting to make these types of modes. Like, that's my personal opinion. It's a detriment to wanting to make these types of modes, because they won't play them like they're playing those modes. They'll just play it like they're wanting to kill people, and that's not good for anyone who wants to just play the mode seriously. And I think that's the worst part of it. And it sucks, because genuinely, it can be fun. But if you're given a team who just don't play the game properly, you just struggle. And everyone else who wants to play the game properly kind of suffers because of it. And it's like, these people should really consider just sticking to playing... Yeah. I think a team deathmatch mode would work better, maybe, but sadly people... Yeah, no, they just don't know how to do it that well. Like, the one thing I'll say is that this type of audience needs to stick to Battle Royale. Like, let, you know, the people who know how to play games like CSGO and whatnot play this mode. Just leave it to them. Like, not to be gatekeepy, but it's just... It just kind of muddies the waters a little bit. And it sucks. Alright, cool, when the button is pressed. So on press for the play button, and on pressed for the quit button. There's a lot of newbies, and while I don't hate that, like, more power to you to look. Yeah. There are definitely people who probably... Like, it's... Yeah, no, it's annoying as shit. Right, so when this is pressed, two things we want to do. So we want to... Or when either of these are pressed, we want to get the play and the quit buttons, and we want to set them to be disabled. So we want to disable them. So set enabled, or set is enabled, and we want to do this so it's set to, you know, false. So set is enabled. And the reason why we do this is because we do not just want... like, the player to still be able to just click buttons as things are happening. So we do this so that they can't just mess around with the buttons anymore. So, because I'm gonna focus on Bossman stream, yours is like a fun little podcast. I'm enjoying my... Ah! I'm glad I can be the fun little background noise while you focus on your work. But yeah, so in both fronts, we set the buttons to disabled so the player just can't mess around with shit. Then, I guess in both cases, so in both cases, we're going to get all... Right, it's get all widgets. Yeah, get all widgets of class. There we go. That's the one. So we're going to select WBP UI fade, and there's only going to be one of this within a scene. That's the general rule of thumb. There's only going to be one of the UI fade things within a given scene. That much is obvious. I also probably should make sure that by default, this is set to, like... Wait, where is render opacity for this? Yeah, I'm gonna, by default, set the render opacity to 0, so that this is just invisible. And then we're gonna say, for each... And I know this is kind of redundant, but... because it's, like, only one object within the loop, but this is the only way that I can actually properly look for this bit of the UI, at least from as far as I can tell, because I'm not basing this off of, like, the specific, user widget class that I made for things, but, so we're gonna say for each, the array element, we're gonna... set widget, set alpha target, and in the loop body, we're just going to say, hey, since we're pressing this, we're going to set this to 1, and then incompleted, we're going to say delay, we're going to wait for, like, 2 seconds, probably, because that's what I did on the other project that I looked at. So we're going to delay for 2 seconds, and then here, load level? Or is it open level? I can't open level by name. Yeah, open level by name. I'm having a big ADHD moment, I think. Really? Because you have stuff open, or is it other thing? Do I need to adjust sound stuff? So we're gonna set alpha target. Got your streamer, bossman streamer, and then somehow. Oh. I am also, and you're also drawing in Sketchbook. You're multitasking on levels hitherto unknown. What the fuck? How do you do this? And again, in this case, we're also going to delay. And then instead of opening level, we're just going to quit game. We're just going to quit the game in this case for the quit game button. Also, a fun little thing that I would love to do at some point as well, like just to make sure that things don't feel like quiet or stale on the main menu for the buttons, is at the very least add like a little hover sound effect to them. So, you know, like whenever any of the buttons are hovered on, it will just like play a little like sound effect, kind of like that. But for all intents and purposes, where is test level is there, so we're gonna oh wait, actually, I realized, probably not a good idea to have the render opacity to... And you don't really want to draw something new there because you don't want to mix years. And it's not like you can really remove those pages because there's stuff on the other sides of them, so... I mean, either that, or if you were able to, just stick the pages together, but... I mean, kind of a silly idea, but... So if we go... Yeah, alright. Now, I would and have done that in the past, but sadly there's stuff on... Oh... I'm not sure, actually. Oh, sorry about that. Let me think. So I've got those two bits now. Those are in the widget bits. I think I could also, like so make a new folder, main menu as of blueprints. Because I'll make a specific folder for the main menu stuff. So we're going to make a blueprint class. We're going to descend from the pawn class. So it's going to be p underscore main menu pawn. And this thing doesn't do anything specific. There won't be anything specific tied to it, at the very least for now. This is essentially just for the sake of like having a pawn that can be controlled within the main menu. then we're going to have the gameplay. Where is the... That's gameplay ability, blueprint, intelligence, input, material, media, misc. Never remember what category game modes fall under. Or is it just in blueprint? Blueprint. No. Foliage, effects, input, material, media, texture, tool presets, user interface. No, it isn't. Right, so I have to go into this and then find game mode base. So GM underscore main menu mode. And this will only be used like within the main menu area. So we're gonna have game session, that's set to default. Player controller, that's just gonna be player controller. Player state, that's default. We're gonna have the main menu pawn there. And have that stuff happen there. Now we're gonna go into... Sorry about that. We're gonna go into the main menu now. And in the world settings, we're just gonna set it to the GM main menu mode here. So that's just gonna have like here the P underscore main menu born here. Instead of, like, you know, if we were using the temp game mode, we just would have had the player here. So now what needs to happen is we need to actually create the main menu, like, widget, but also the fade widget as well. So we're going to go into, like how all other objects has a, like, all other, like, blueprint objects, you know, have their blueprint. Levels themselves have blueprints as well, and if there's anything specific you need to happen within the level, then you could try and set things within that blueprint. So, in begin play, and I did get a... Yep. I'm going to create widget. And what we're constructing is we're going to get WBP underscore main menu. So we're creating the actual main menu widget here. And then we're going to add to the viewport. So add to viewport. But we're going to set it to a very far down, like, Z order. So we're going to make sure that this one in particular appears essentially beneath everything else that could appear on the main menu in terms of, like, UI. And the reason for this is that we need the fade widget to appear on top of things, because it's going to be awkward if we just have it the stuff fading in and fading out while, like, the buttons and text sit on top of it. So setting it to, like, -1000 basically guarantees that nothing could ever, like, that it can't appear on top of anything else, basically. So... Wait, my brain... Oh yeah, I need to create the fade widget now. So create widget UI fade. I'm going to attach that there. We're going to add to viewport. And we don't need to set anything for, like, the Z order here. We don't need to do that. We're also going to get this, and we're going to set the alpha target to 0. Because by default, the render opacity for, like, the fade widget will just be 1. So we're going to set the alpha target to 0, so we're just going to progressively get that set to 0. And then, from my memory... Oh yeah, no. Now I remember. We're going to get the player controller. So we're going to get the player controller. It's just going to be a bog standard gameplay or player controller here, because we're not doing... I'm sorting out stuff for, like, the actual main menu at the moment. So Because at the moment, we don't have, like, a main menu or a pause menu, so a way for the player to go, like, from a thing into the game, and then a way for the player to go from the game into the main menu. So I'm kind of doing those bits today, because that's kind of important. And it's basic stuff at the moment. There won't be, like, any specific, like, flair or special touches done for it right now, but there will be later down the line. It will be a lot more, I guess, unique in a way. So yeah, we're going to get the player controller. It's only a regular player controller. It's not like we're using the player controller that we use for the actual gameplay and stuff, but we're going to set the show mouse cursor. So we're going to make it so that the mouse cursor appears, so we can actually move it around and click on the buttons and stuff. And then we're also going to set input mode UI only. And that means that the player won't be able to do anything like within the game itself. It will only be like, you know, accessing the UI and stuff. So that's all done within this level blueprint. So if I click play, that happened too quickly. That wasn't like enough. That was a very quick fade rate. So if I go back into that, set the fade rate, I want to set it to maybe 0.5 so we can actually see that happen. Set it to 0.5. That it didn't extend across the entire screen. Hold on. Let me actually, I mean, it's fading as intended, but I think I do need to have size X be a little bit bigger. So 2200 instead. And maybe it's something to do with the, yeah, no, though I do need to make size Y a lot bigger too. So size Y, I'm going to set that to 1400 instead. There we go. So now we have the UI fade working. And because it's been set to not hit testable for the image, we're still able to sort of like hover over the buttons and click on them. So if we click the quit button, okay, kind of odd. I might have done that. Hold on. So get all. Did I do that incorrectly? I feel I might have done that wrong. Hold on. Right, let's see what happens when I click the play button. Okay, same thing happens there. And of course it does load into the level. However, we cannot do anything at the moment because of the thing that I need to do within the level blueprint. But we'll get to that. Kind of concerning that stuff with the buttons is not working as I'm intending it to. It's when the button is clicked. Of course, this being stretched doesn't help matters. What's supposed to happen is that when the button is clicked, it's supposed to fade to black, and then it's supposed to, you know, quit the game. But at the moment, it doesn't seem to be fading to black at all. You know, weird things are happening. Weird things are kind of happening, so... So WPP, UI fade, and enable, found widgets. So that's a for each loop. Right, I'm gonna quickly hover on over to Clip Studio. Oh, here's something funny. Tell me about it while I load up another project and take a look at what I possibly messed up. This will take a few moments. Sorry, chat. Where is it? There it is. This shouldn't take so long to load up now because I've at least loaded it up once. I haven't touched the sketchbook since like the start of the year. You've done basically almost digital the entire time this year. Oh. Oh, no. I'm guessing the key word for that would be biting, right? I was not wrong. I was not wrong. Oh boy. But yeah, there happened to be a page glued to the other side of that page, so I peeled it off and then just stuck it. Alright. Quick thinking, at least. Also, I found out the issue that was happening with the buttons and stuff, so I can probably fix that now, which is good. So, just going to quickly load up the project again, and just make those little tweaks. Right, there we go. I'm also going to move these to be at the end of, like, the loop part of things as well, so... Oh yeah, so this was one of the things I was missing. It was checking if the widget itself is within the viewport, so if it's actually been added to the viewport for the scene. If it hasn't, then it'll just skip straight to, you know, doing the 2-second delay and then the like either playing or quitting the game. But I was missing this part in particular because yeah, I think this is the part that actually helps it to work. So is in viewport branch, then true, then we do that, and false, we go straight to the delay. So now I hope this should work. Play. Okay, that's concerning. That shouldn't be happening. What's going on? Hold on. Let me... There's something... Why do I get the feeling there's something I've definitely missed or messed up? 60 render opacity. Oh. Oh, wait, no, I realized what I've done wrong. Whoops. Set render opacity. I forgot the I didn't get the right set render opacity. Whoops. So it wasn't a matter of that side of things, it was a matter of this side of things. Also, ads. Not gonna get on too much with things while the ads are happening. that should be working now. So if I wait for that to happen and click play. Cool. So now that we know that it's, you know, properly working, we're going to set fade rate to something a little bit faster. So probably 0.75, so it's, you know, not as slow. There we go. Right. I'll get on with the next bit once ads are finished. Just so, like, people who are stuck in the ads, if possible, will, you know, they don't miss anything. I can't believe it's 10 days until Christmas. Like, we're 15 days through December already. It's honestly kind of insane. I don't like that too much. I don't really appreciate that too much. It's just kind of... like, before we know it, it will be the end of the year. We'll be going into 2025, and that's scary to me. Like, especially considering how different next year could possibly be. I don't know, like, I haven't talked about, like, a lot of stuff that's, you know, been, like, big things that happened to me this year, and I don't think I will for a while, unless I feel up to it, but there's definitely a lot that's happened, and it's insane. But it's just, it's wild. It's wild. I dislike it a lot. How quickly things have gone by. It's crazy. It's honestly crazy. Right, and ads are finished. Welcome back. So it was a small problem on like the side of the actual method within the UI fade widget blueprint. I didn't have the right version of set render opacity out for some reason, so yeah, that's why that wasn't working. But now, if we were to click quit or play, so we'll click quit for this example, it works. And if we quit play, it works. However, as you may have noticed, one, we don't have the UI fade here in this scene, so we just have it immediately cut into the gameplay. And two, we cannot do anything in this, like, in this scene at the moment. Nothing can, like, I am, like, mashing my WASD keys and nothing is happening. And there is a reason for that. So we're going to go out that. So I'm going to call your attention to something. Something that we just did with the level blueprint here. So right at the end, there were two things that we did. First, we did it so, or we made it so that the mouse cursor is shown, and we do that via the player controller. That's one thing. The second thing is we set the input mode. setting the input mode to UI only makes it so that you can only interact with just the UI. Only the UI. Nothing else can be interacted with. So you can't do any form of input to interact with, you know, the gameplay itself. You can't move a player. You can't do anything at all. You can't attack. You can't do anything. Essentially, we essentially block off the ability to actually, you know, play the game by setting input mode to UI only. So what we need to do, so in the event of the test level, and probably also in the event of, like, moving it into the... I'm trying to think to myself. The thingamajiggy, just the test space, like the third-person level, in case we ever, like, use the main menu to load into that instead, is... what we need to do, first we need to actually make the UI fade UI as well. So here we have the level blueprint for this level, and as I said, every level has its own blueprint, its own level blueprint. So this one at the moment is empty, we haven't done anything with it, and the same thing will happen with the third person level that's included with, like, the third person template. That will just kind of have its own empty level blueprint that we can kind of do with as we wish, whatever we need it to do. So it's cool stuff, you know? So, what we need to do is first we need to create the UI fade widget. So create widget. Also, I can't wait to be able to get on with more Skyward Sword, because the stream the other day, like, or the latter half of the stream the other day from having beaten Xenoblade and moving on to that was pretty damn funny. So, I can't wait to get on with more of it, because, I mean, generally speaking, not just, like, funny stuff, but also getting on with the game as well. Because I felt like towards, like, the end of things, I was getting used to things quite a bit. So, sorry, I just realized I had stream muted because the ads were really loud, then I forgot to... Oh! Okay, so anyway, we're going to add the... Yeah, but as I was saying, yeah, I can't wait to get on with more Skyward Sword. I honestly can't wait to get on with either that or Infinite Wealth, because both of those playthroughs are fun. I was also, like, it was also fun with Xenoblade as well. Like, because, you know, indulging one of my favorite games ever, but I am liking what I have in terms of, you know, stuff that I've got to play moving forward, now that Xenoblade is finished. And eventually we'll get into Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Eventually we'll, you know, move on to Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep level 1. That's still going to happen. That is still a reality, but at the moment we've just got other things to play through. What am I? Oh yeah, no, add to viewport. That was it. So add to viewport. We don't need to do anything here with it. And the reason why we're, like, remaking it again is because widgets don't exactly persist between scenes, as far as I'm aware. It's not like in Unity where you could mark an object as don't destroy on load. Same thing doesn't apply here, so it's kind of strange. I haven't looked into it. I haven't looked into it to see if there's, like, anything remotely equivalent to it. I should probably actually look this up right now, just so I can, you know, confirm it and not be like, oh yeah, I don't think there is, and feel like I'm just talking out my ass. So, Unreal Engine don't destroy. Oh, okay, right. So, from my understanding, right. So I'm gonna quickly go into Clip Studio, because I do want to illustrate this. This is, like, if I'm going to explain this verbally, I may as well have visual aids so I can, you know, explain it to people who may not understand what the hell I'm talking about. But, right, so I also had the pen the wrong way. So in Unity, so going back to my history with Unity, with the Unity engine. So in Unity, in the code, so within like C# code, you could make something or mark something as don't destroy on load. So within an object script, because within Unity, you could just have an object, you know, have multiple scripts and whatnot. But in at least one of them, or in just one of them in general, you could mark the object as don't destroy on load. And what this essentially means is that if you were to move, like in a normal instance, if you move, so say this is a level, and say this is another level. When you move from one level to another, so without DDOL, so don't destroy on load, everything within one level does not persist to the other level. So everything, like, when moving from one level to another and the first level is unloaded, everything within that level is destroyed, and then, like, everything that's supposed to exist within the next level just basically sort of loads in. And the same ring true if you were to move back to that previous scene from the one that you just loaded, this one would have everything destroyed, and then everything would just sort of respawn as if it was like the factory defaults, like if it was the factory settings for an object. But no, I said without. So without, you move from one level to another, everything is gone. So everything is destroyed. However, if, for example, you either marked, say, a UI object or a player object within the Unity engine as don't destroy and load. So, for example, again, I'm going to use the same little representation for the player, but that's a bit wonky. Whoops. I swear to God, I have the tablet at an angle. That's not helping me. That's better. So, say we have the player. So, once again, this is the player. And, for example, this is marked with DDOL, so don't destroy on load. If you move from one scene to another in Unity, and an object has don't destroy on load, has that toggled on, while everything else is destroyed, for example, in this instance, the player is marked with it, the player would persist, because it has been marked as don't destroy on load, so this object will be persistent, so player persists as it moves from one level to another. And the one thing that I do remember within Unity, or I say one thing, there's quite a few things that I remember with working with Unity, but this key thing with marking an object as don't destroy and load, if it's an object that's like affected by physics, such as a player, then whatever coordinates it was at within a level as it moves into another one, it will retain those coordinates as it moves into its second level. So if you're like in one position in the first level, you move to a new scene to another level, but there's no ground beneath those coordinates in the new level, you essentially just start falling, which is kind of funny. However, that's just my whole point of explaining, like, Unity's don't destroy and load. Now, what does Unreal have in terms of, like, object persistence? Like, or just persistence for things in general? What does Unreal have for persistence? Well, it doesn't have a thing that you can mark within the code as, like, don't destroy and load. Like, there's stuff like level streaming, which, like, handles, like, the loading and unloading on levels of stuff, and you can divide levels into, like, chunks that you load and unload whenever you need it to, basically. But the one thing that I have learned just now, basically, that I think essentially covers this is what Unreal calls the persistent level. And I haven't used the persistent level at all, so I don't know too much about this. I really need to look into it, because I feel like it would be very useful storing things within it that you need to essentially, you know, persist between loads of, like, multiple different levels. But I believe, as far as I'm aware, for the basics of this, what a persistent level does is like... Let me actually just look at something else to just double check, just to fact check. So, Unreal Engine persistent level. Oh, yeah, right. So, now I understand. So, I know this is all sounding like a whole bunch of game dev gobbledygook to people who are not devs, but it is fun for me to kind of explain this stuff. I like looking into this kind of thing and then sort of like, hey, this is why I understand this as. But, the persistent level is essentially like, a map that is always loaded. And essentially, it's essentially what it says on the tin. It is something that remains loaded regardless of like whatever maps are loaded in and unloaded and stuff. So if I was to go back into the engine and demonstrate this, I think this is how it would work. I also haven't finished doing everything else here, so sorry about that. But I also need to set the alpha target to 0. So alpha target, set that to 0. Gonna do that. We're gonna finish this bit in a few moments, but I am having like a bit of a time explaining it. So we're gonna go here, and I don't know. I don't think we have a persistent level. Right, so, I can't exactly demonstrate it because I can't actually check, but, so, essentially, persistent level is a map that is always loaded. So, you can have, like, the persistent level in the background, and then, so, in the hierarchy, you have persistent level, and anything that is loaded under it, so, you say you have this box, this is the persistent level, and then you have another box, say this is level 1, and then another box, say this is level 2, and then you also have like the main menu and stuff. So any, like, if you were using persistent levels, any and all other levels would essentially be encompassed within the persistent level. And the reason why this is helpful, so say for example, level 1 is like currently loaded, and level 2 is currently unloaded, and the main menu is currently like unloaded. If there was something that you needed to persist within like all of these scenes, if there was something that you needed to exist throughout all of them, then you could throw that object. So say we have object, we're just going to call it object for the sake of argument, but say you needed this one object, this one little object, you need it to essentially just remain present the entire time the game is running. You don't want to get rid of it. You just want it to exist from the main menu to the first level to the second level and back to the main menu again until you quit the game. You could store it within the persistent level. So say you have like a day-night cycle, and like an object that handles a day-night cycle, and you need to, like, if you're moving from like one like area to another, but you want to maintain like what time of day it currently is, you just keep that within the persistent level, and then as you're loading from one like map to another, it will still keep that thing in its current state as you're loading into like the next level. It's kind of a bit weird explaining it out loud, but basically think of the persistent level as one thing that can encompass other levels that are loaded and unloaded, that can also store objects that you need to basically just be there the entire time the game is running. That's essentially it. So that's the difference between Unity's like form of like level persistence and Unreal Engine's version of like object like persistence between different levels. As I said, I haven't properly looked into persistent levels yet. I need to at some point, because I feel like for this project, at the very least, it could be very helpful, depending on what I want things to do. But we just have to wait and see. Oh yeah, no. So now that I've done explaining that, if people need me to re-explain things, I can always do that in a bit. But for now, I should also leave group chat so that doesn't appear as that in the low or not leave group chat, but move to a different channel or different server so that doesn't appear in the... Because I don't think it's nice, like, having, like, display capture on and then having the word fucker appear at the bottom in the hotbar. So, you know, fun times, fun times. But yes, back to what we were doing before. So I'm trying to remember how the... Oh yeah, because I was talking about like how at the very least for the time being this kind of stuff doesn't remain persistent. I probably can like use persistent levels to actually, you know, change that, but who knows, who knows. Anyway, under the assumption that the UI fade widget doesn't remain consistent, like within levels and whatnot, we're going to remake it here, we're going to add it to the viewport, we're going to set the alpha target to 0 so that when we fade into the level, this just becomes transparent. And then we're going to get the player controller. And the good thing about the get player controller method is that we don't need to like look for a specific version of the player controller class, so we don't need to look for our like project specific like custom player controller that I made for the player specifically within the code. We just look for the player controller and it will just return a player controller object reference. And if we look back at the code, if I go into the TP underscore player controller, for example, I mean, that is the one that we use for the player. So this just inherits or is just a child of the A player controller or just the player controller class in general. So it will still get this when we use get player controller, which is, you know, probably one of the most helpful things. So back into the editor. So we're getting the player controller. Again, we're going to set show mouse cursor. But we don't want the mouse cursor to be visible anymore because we're not using like a menu or anything. The other thing that we want to do is set input mode game only. And this basically just means that when we're setting it so that we're not interacting with like any UI elements or anything, we're only, you know, we're only concerned with interacting with the game itself. So, you know, moving the player around, using the projectiles and stuff, wall jumping, wall sliding, all that jazz. So if we go back into the main menu and, you know, we do what we were doing before, we click play and we're loading into the level itself. Now we're able to look around, we're able to move around, we're able to sprint, we're able to jump, we're able to wall jump, we're able to air dash, we're able to stomp. We're basically able to do all the player stuff again, now that we've, you know, set the input mode back to, you know, actually interacting with the game itself rather than just the UI. So that's one part of it. And I say one part of it because we also need the pause menu now. So what I want to do for the pause menu is, I guess at the moment, it'll just be like a little thing that appears like in the middle of the screen or on the side, who knows. Probably just the middle of the screen just to, you know, be very basic, frankly. But it works. So we're gonna go back into widgets. We're gonna go into we're gonna make a user widget blueprint. It's gonna be WBP underscore pause menu. And once again, this is probably going to be an overlay. No, not an overlay, a canvas. It's going to be a canvas panel. Of course, the visibility of like a canvas panel is already, or it's already not hit testable. But I think for the sake of it, it actually probably makes it easier just to set a canvas to not hit testable, but for everything beneath it as well. So for all the children, like UI widget objects, like the actual like elements of the widget, just so you know we don't have any issues with input. Oh wait, no, actually, we probably only want it to be not hit testable for itself in this case, because if we were to set it for everything that's under this canvas panel, we would not be able to interact with the buttons or anything, so that's not good. So we're going to have an image, going to have that, we'll have the anchors set to middle. Or I could do that. I don't know. I never know if like for like a pause menu, if having the anchors set like that helps. I've never known. I've never known. But we're gonna do what I do normally at the moment because you know I'm used to it. I could try something different and actually try doing that. Who knows? But we're going to make it so that it takes up roughly like this amount of space on the horizontal, and we're going to make it take up this amount of space on the vertical, so say maybe 850. So you know it's almost like equilateral, both like along both the X and the Y. Gonna set this to, at the moment we're gonna set it to be like the color black, but we're going to set the opacity to something a little bit lower so that it doesn't like obstruct the entire screen. You can still see things behind it. So we're going to set it to that. That seems about right. And then we're going to get a text. Now, I can't remember. It has to be above things. So set the anchors to the middle again. We're going to set it to 0, 0. Okay, it needs to be lower in the hierarchy to actually be above things. Right, that's how it works. Okay, cool. I remembered how the hierarchy for like objects and where they appeared, like in terms of layering, works for the widget blueprints and whatnot. So, gonna have the justification be at the center. We're gonna increase the size because otherwise, if we're trying to increase the font size, then it will just kind of like start spilling out, and that's not really a good thing. So I'm going to do 300 by 100. I'm going to set the font size to say maybe 40, just to be a bit healthy. We're going to bring this... bring this... Ooh! Whoops. We're going to bring this up to, say, minus 300. And we're just going to say, you know, in big block capitals, paused. And that's all it's going to say. And we're going to have... Oh, sorry. We're going to have some buttons again. So, one button here. I'm going to say... Oh, wait, that's the actual text block name. We're going to have two buttons. We're going to have... So, resume button. And again, we're going to do the anchors the same way. Move it to the middle. Have the alignment be set to the center, because I don't know why the alignment isn't set to the middle by default. It's kind of weird. And I need to remember what size I made the buttons on the main menu, just so I can probably make them a little bit consistent, but maybe slightly smaller. So 300 by 100 was the size for the buttons on the main menu. So 300. Okay, actually, maybe not here. So maybe 200 by 50. You know, still reasonably sized, but not as large as the ones on the main menu. So we're gonna bring this one up. Minus 150. And then we're going to duplicate it. No, actually, I should probably throw the text on there before I duplicate it. So text. Throw the text on there. Let's set the font color so that it's easily visible. At least on these buttons. So we're going to set the font color to that, and then we're going to duplicate it. So duplicate the button. We're going to set its X position to 0. And minus 150. Just going to set it to 0 on the Y for now. For now, until, you know, we have, like, a settings button to go with this, and we just, you know, move it down and then throw a settings button right in the middle. But for now, we just have these two buttons. At the moment, it's still called resume button 1, so we're going to call it the quit button. But this isn't going to quit the game, this is going to quit to menu. So this is going to just say resume, and then this is going to say, this probably may spill over, who knows, quit to menu. Right, it did spill over a little bit. Gonna just, maybe to 20? Yeah, 20 seems like a better, Okay, cool. So I think, as far as I'm aware, there's something in particular that I'm remembering, or trying to remember. I'm not remembering it. I'm trying to remember. So we have a resume button and the quit button. Going to say on click, or no, on pressed here. We want to, of course, we want to disable the buttons again, like in the main menu, because we don't want the player to just, you know, re-enable them. So set is enabled. I'm gonna duplicate this as well, so I don't need to drag off of it again. Wait, actually, I don't think this is the right one. Set enabled. Oh yeah, set is enabled. That was the wrong one. I was about to say, if I got the wrong one again, we'd have a similar case with what happened with the UI fade. So we're going to set is enabled to false. I'm also going to move this down underneath it so it's easy to grab these and duplicate them for, like, pressing the other button too. So I don't need to keep doing that. Actually, no, I don't need this for this. I'm just gonna need them for the quit button. So on pressed, set time scale. All right. Yeah, world. I'm trying to remember. I'm gonna have to look at that other project again because I can't remember, like, because I know what I did for pausing the game was, like, set the world's, like, time scale to 0, I think? Or set is paused. Or is it set pause? It might be set game pause. Yep, there it is. So, set game pause. That's all I did. And I think also removing this from the... it might have... Hold on a moment. Gonna do the same thing I did earlier again, so we're gonna close the editor. I'm going to quickly look at the thing, because I can't remember. I genuinely can't remember. Because of how often, like, I get around to doing this kind of thing for a project, either because of time or because I lose focus on things, it's kind of concerning how little I've actually fully implemented pausing into an Unreal project. So, and also in Unity, how I did it was completely different, because it was kind of unreliable in a sense. Right, so checking this other project again. So we're gonna get the vods. Gonna have the oh, yep, no, there it is. I was wondering where it was. Anyway, so in resume, so play sound. So set game pause. Alright, no, yeah, no, now I remember. Okay, cool. I can get back to it. Also, important things I actually have to do, within it, so... So, and then on the quit one, it's... Yep. Open level... Right. Cool! So now I know. I'm gonna reopen the project again, or reopen the editor again. It's happened multiple times, me having to refer back to another project because I've forgotten a thing or two. But that's not a bad thing, honestly. Sometimes you just forget. So, back here again, we're just going to reopen the asset editors because it'd be kind of a hassle reopening every single one of them. But for some reason it didn't reopen the pause menu. Huh. Anyway, so not only is it set game pause to false, but then there will also be... So get player controller. Set mouse. That's a set show mouse cursor. I'm gonna set that to false. Again, so basically just like with the main menu and whatnot, and with the level blueprint. And then here we're also gonna set input mode game only, so the player can interact with things again. Because with the pause menu, we're also going to be setting this to pause. We're going to be showing the mouse cursor, but we're also going to be essentially disabling the ability to interact with the game. But we'll be doing that on the C++ side of things. And also remove from parent. And what remove from parent does in this case, because for other objects, like if you have like an object that's parented to another one, or you have a component parented to an object, and you say remove from parent for a specific component or whatnot, that will just basically detach it and essentially leave it on its own. In this case, or in the case of like a UI widget, instead of just like detaching it and leaving it on its own, because it's no longer attached to the viewport, it essentially destroys it. It essentially destroys it, which is, you know, a neat little thing it does to sort of like make sure it doesn't linger. And then, of course, we have on pressed for the click button. Or for the quit button. For the quit button. I said the click button, not the quit button. God. So we're going to set the two buttons to be disabled. So we're going to make sure we can't interact with them anymore. We're going to get all widgets of class, and we're going to get the UI fade. And we're essentially going to do what we did earlier. So we're going to say for each loop. And again, check is in viewport. So we're checking if it's in the viewport. Branch And if it does exist within the viewport, we're just gonna do what we did earlier. So set alpha target to 1. And then delay for 2 seconds. And we'll also set that to just happen if it's false. And then open level by name. And we just open the main menu. That's what we do. So we just open the main menu. And that's pretty much it. That's for the quit button. And then that's for this. However, I'm going to collapse this into its own function. You can do that within Blueprints. You could just like highlight a whole bunch of things and collapse it into a function. We're just going to call this unpause or resume game. Resume game. Oh, that should be a capital as well. Whoops. And the reason why I am doing this is because, like, not only would the player just want to, you know, like, press on a button and resume the game, but they would also want to be able to just, you know, press the button that they used to pause to begin with to essentially resume the game. So, you know, that's an important factor. That's an important factor. But we'll do that in a little bit. What we need to do now within the player controller is we need to add the ability to actually pause the game. Because at the moment, while the pause menu exists as like an object, we can't pause the game itself. So I also need to find out the actual code for the other project I was using. So we're gonna go GitHub source, and I don't know, this was before I actually started delegating like all of my input stuff to player controllers for my projects, so this is definitely handled within the player itself, which is not really that good. Okay, pause game. Right, cool. Or at the very least, the input for pausing the game was handled within the player. Let me think. Oh yeah, no, there it is. Right, sorry, I'll be a few moments trying to find stuff out. Okay, cool. Now I remember how this is done. Alright, so at the moment, we don't need the enemy open at all for anything. Don't need base projectile open, so we don't need any of these open. What we need open is the player controller in its entirety. We just need the player controller. So we're gonna need to add another U input action, and this is just gonna be U input action pointer pause action. Ooh. Sorry. And then we're going to attach, you know, we're just going to make the method to attach to it. So void pause the game. So pause the game. So, however, also what is important here is that I make a private variable. So this is going to be a U property. Again, this is going to be edit anywhere. And that's all I need. All I need is the edit anywhere. This is going to be forward declared because class user widget. And this is going to be T subclass of user widget. So we can actually use blueprints for this. So user widget pointer, and this will be pause menu class. And then under here we're gonna have a U. Oh wait, it can't be a pointer. Whoops. I forget. So it can't be a pointer here, but it can be a pointer here. So we're gonna have a user widget pointer, and we're just gonna call this pause menu. This one is just like, this is the class that we're using for the pause menu, and this is what's just going to, you know, actually like the variable that's going to be populated by creating a widget from this. Okay, so there's two things we need here. We're going to need the include for blueprint / widget blueprint library, and then we're also just going to need the include for blueprint / widget or user widget as well. So we need these two includes because we need them for the functions that we need to use for this. Okay, so in begin play, at the moment we don't have anything happening in the controller's begin play. So if pause menu class, and we only want this to happen if the variable has a value that it's set to, or a value assigned to it, then we're just going to say pause menu. So that other variable that we're populating, we're just going to say create widget, and it has to be of class user widget. And we've already, you know, included the include for that, so it won't come up with like an error. We're going to have this be the owning object, and then we're going to use the pause menu class. And at the moment, we're not adding it to the viewport. And the reason for that being is because we only want to add it to the viewport when the game, you know, is actually paused. And this also works in relation with when we're unpausing the game and we're removing it from, you know, the viewport. If we were to add it to the viewport in the begin play and remove it on, like, when you unpause the game and not have it, like, added when you're pausing the game, we just have no way of getting it back. So, it's best not to add it to the viewport yet until we're actually pausing it. So, if we go down... I mean, I don't think I actually... Oh yeah, no, I did. I did add the method. I haven't added the actual input of it. So, enhanced input. We're going to bind the action. So, pause, action, E, trigger event, triggered, this, let's go, right, pause the game is right there, cool. So, in pause the game, which is right here, thank God. We're only going to want this to happen if, you know, pause menu, the variable actually has a value for it. If it's null pointer, so if the pause menu class hasn't had anything assigned to it, then this doesn't have a widget created for it, for this variable. So this just doesn't exist, so this won't happen. But if it does exist, this will happen. So we're going to have pause menu. We're going to add to viewport, as we've done in the blueprints as well. We're going to U widget blueprint library set input mode UI only EX, and it will be for this. And then we're also going to say b show mouse cursor is true. And then we're going to set pause to true. And that's basically all it on the C++ side. So, of course, we're going to have to close the engine because I was doing this while the editor was still open. And, of course, this needs to be, you know, rebuilt from the code so it actually has these changes reflected. So, you know, we're going to do that. Right, that's the engine back open again. Right, first thing I need to do, before anything, I need to remember to set in the player controller. So go into the player, we're going to go into the player controller, go here. We don't have an action set for it yet, we're going to do that. But for the pause menu class, we need to make sure it's set to WBP pause menu because we've had it plenty of times before where I've, you know, done the input stuff and forgotten to, you know, actually set what it is we're needing to actually do. So we're going to make an input action, I'm going to call it IA_pause. Now, here's the problem. I can't, for the editor's sake, I can't exactly use the escape button because in play mode in the editor, the escape button just stops play mode anyway, so I can't use that for the editor. I probably could in the actual game itself, but in the editor, can't do that. So, just gonna set it to, I'm gonna set it to like the weird this key next to
I'm really
the one
feeling
key.
it.
Oh, I forgot that's hidden underneath everything else, but thank you for the follow. I should move the stream elements overlay to the top. So now stream elements and the sound alert stuff is like right above everything else. That was kind of weird. And that's all I want to happen. But of course, we still need to actually add that pause action there anyway. So IA_pause, because otherwise it won't have the method bound to it. There won't be anything to bind the method to, so it wouldn't work. So I'm gonna test things here in this level, may as well as the one here. I'm gonna click play. So if I press this key. Oh, wait, no, I realize I can't use that one either, because that opens the console. Like, the actual input console. Right, screw it, we're just gonna do the one key instead. Just for the sake of it. At the moment, the one key isn't being used for anything. So this should be fine for the time being. So, if we press the one key. Right, game is paused. Nothing is moving, the player isn't moving, nothing else is happening. So this works on this end. If we resume, everything resumes, everything's able to move again, the player can move, the enemies can move and just sort of animate and everything. If I was to press 1 again, this happens again. Now, if we were to quit, it wouldn't work for the UI fade here because it doesn't exist in the scene. So I don't think the button will actually properly do anything. Yeah, it won't finish because of how I have it set up. That's kind of a silly on my part, but there we go. But if we were to go to the main menu, I have lost where everything is again. Okay, cool. So go into the game, we load in, we're able to move around and do stuff again, which is good. If we press 1, the game will pause, Also, I do need to get rid of some of the debug stuff, again. So of course, resume works. That should also, yep, that should also disappear. Now, if we press 1 and then quit to menu. Okay, bit of a problem. Because nothing is being done in terms of, like, where the pause menu is drawn in terms of the Z order, they appear basically on the same layer. And because of that, I think there'll be moments where, like, that UI fade does appear above it. But in most cases, the pause menu will appear above the UI fade, which is not what I want. So add to viewport, yeah, Z order. So we're gonna set it to -1000, just like the actual like main menu widget. Ooh. Ooh. So once again, we're going to rebuild the project. We're going to get that all loaded up again. Whew. Right. Okay, so right, we're back here again. Back to main menu. Also, ad break starts in a few minutes for people in chat. We're just double checking to make sure this is all working now. It should be, so, or it should be appearing properly. It was working, it just wasn't appearing on the right layer. So, probably also move things back to, there we go. Because that was there. Now, right, that appears above it. Cool. And then the main menu loads again, and this fades back, you know, fades from black. And if we quit, fades to black, and it quits. Cool. That whole loop, that whole game loop that I was talking about earlier. So if we go back to Clip Studio, we go back to the first thing that I opened, where we go from the main menu to the game, and then we have from the game to the main menu. That stuff is working now, and that's probably a very important thing to do when you're kind of starting out on the project, is making sure that little loop from the main menu to the game and then from the game to the main menu in its most standard form is implemented. Don't, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, sure, like, stuff like settings and everything can come later, but at the same time, this is probably the most important thing that you can do. Like, just getting the ability to start playing the game, the ability to pause the game, and then to quit to the main menu, and also to quit the game as well. So, that is basically done for this part, which is good. Now, I feel like one thing that I guess is super important, like, it's essentially a fundamental of the game's design itself, and I'm surprised I've never really talked about it or gone over it or actually done anything like this off stream at all as well, is the actual gameplay loop. And I probably won't start talking about this right now because the ad break is about to start in about 30 seconds. Which, you know, I don't want to start talking about it and then people miss my explanation if they're not sub. So I'm gonna let the ad break roll. I'm also going to take a small little break again while that is happening. And then, you know, we're just gonna wait until it ends, and then we're gonna go over things, because it's kind of important. So, ad is starting. Oh, whoops! I didn't mean to highlight multiple things in OBS. So ad is starting. gonna throw that there, even though I'm actually just gonna put it on the BRB screen. But just to say that we're in the ad break, just for the sake of it, I'll quickly do a few things. Small break for myself. I'll be right back. Hang on tight, stay right there. I won't be too long. See you in a moment. Okay, and we are back. I didn't mean to go back to that one though, I meant to go back to this one. Okay, cool. I've never really properly been able to sort of explain this whole thing. Like, saying, like, second to second, minute to minute, hour to hour, you can kind of get a general idea of, you know, the things that happen, but there's a difference between kind of generally explaining things and being a bit more specific to your actual project. I've always kind of struggled with actually defining a gameplay loop, in a way, and I guess that's kind of a bad thing. I also should remove the add in progress, or hide the add in progress thing, because we're not in ad break anymore. I've always kind of generally struggled with this, so, or a core gameplay loop. In a way, I guess, I had it, no, you missed me explaining a lot of stuff! I mean, it's okay, you can listen to me ramble on and do stuff again in the VOD. But, I haven't started explaining this part yet, which is good. So, I've always found it a bit difficult for me to, to apply, a core gameplay loop properly to my own projects. I know it's a fundamental of game design, or not an absolute fundamental that you need to know, but it's a useful one to know, if you're trying to apply something similar to your own project. But a core gameplay loop is essentially a thing that you're doing that a thing that the player does whenever they're playing the game, and there are different layers of it. So if you remember from here, I labeled this as gameplay loop, and we have the second to second, which bleeds, which is part of the minute to minute, which has its own little loop, and then this happens within the hour to hour, which is its own loop. But at its base level, a gameplay loop is essentially I don't know, for example, we say, let me use Super Mario, Mario Brothers as an example. So we run through level, we collect power-up / coins. So collect power-ups / coins, and defeat enemies. And this would essentially... Actually, this is a good example of a second-to-second loop. This is essentially what would happen whenever the player is playing through a level. So the player would run through the level, they would collect power-ups / coins, and they would defeat enemies. And if I was to sort of go through the different layers of gameplay loops, so we consider this a second-to-second. This just happens very often. This is essentially what basically happens almost the entire time that the player is running, playing the game, for example. So I'm gonna label this as the second to second. So what happens near every moment. Then we have things that happen a little less often, but still happen often enough. We'll have the minute to minute. And this second to second loop could essentially be considered part of the minute to minute. So, I guess in this case, I may be wrong about this. There's different interpretations for this, so I may be definitely wrong about this. So, the minute-to-minute loop, for example, could be play level, complete level, and then move to next level. And this is just an interpretation of what a minute-to-minute loop could be for Super Mario Brothers. I might be wrong. or maybe there's no wrong answer or no right answer. There's just many different interpretations for what could constitute a gameplay loop in this case. But I'm just using Super Mario Bros. As an example because in terms of the gameplay style, it's fairly easy to understand, and it's also easy to essentially, like, identify a gameplay loop from this. And then what happens way less often than a second-to-second and minute-to-minute loop is the hour-to-hour. And I guess in this case we could say, so start world, beat boss, and then move to next world. Even though I'd say it wouldn't take like hours to move on from one world to another in Mario, but this is essentially what I guess this would be like the different layers of gameplay loops within this game. And even then, this is all just boiled down to like a standard kind of like, oh, like this will happen, like these 3 steps will happen. Like, it doesn't need to be like 3 steps within a gameplay loop. It could be 4, it could be 5 steps, it could be many more steps. And hell, it doesn't need to be like exactly linear. You can have like branching paths within a gameplay loop that eventually sort of link back into the main part of the loop itself. But for all intents and purposes, this would be a pretty standard loop for Super Mario Bros. I should probably also write the super here, so I'm not, you know, confusing people with the Mario Brothers arcade game, where you have, like, the bloody bricks and the pipes and stuff. So, Super Mario Bros. And I guess in a way, that would also apply to the new Super Mario Brothers, and I guess also, I'd say Mario Wonder. It would definitely apply to that game too. So, you know, fairly standard kind of thing. So, that's very easy to come up with the gameplay loop for Super Mario Bros. However, I feel like it becomes a bit more blurred, like, or I say a bit more blurred. I'd say it becomes a little bit more complicated to try and come up with a gameplay loop when you throw something like a collectathon into the mix, because sure, you have some standard things that could be considered like universal across collectathons, but some of the things that happen structure-wise can be very different between like different collectathon games. Cool. But as I was saying, I feel like it does become a little bit more difficult when you're trying to think of the gameplay loop. Or at the very least, in my head, it feels like it would be difficult because I've never, like, I haven't really done this too much, like, trying to visualize or trying to sort of think of the gameplay loops for different types of games. And I really feel like I need to practice that a bit more often, because it would be helpful for my own projects where I need to define, yeah, this is the gameplay loop. This is what's happening in the second to second, the minute to minute, and the hour to hour. This is what players are expected to be doing. So, Yeah, no, a lot more practice may be needed. A lot more practice may be needed. Because goddamn, it would it would surely be helpful. But yes, I'm going to go for my main inspiration, and we're going to look at Spyro. And now while we're not properly like developing anything at the moment, I feel like this is not just like a helpful learning experience for myself, but this is also a good learning experience for people who either are devs themselves and wanting to get into things, or are not, game devs themselves, but maybe interested in this type of stuff. It's the same with like all my other explanations about different things within game engines and everything. I like explaining for people who may not understand, so I can at the very least make things a bit clearer to people who are watching these streams who, like, either live or on the VODs, whether, like, you're a dev yourself, or whether you're, just someone who is, like, very interested in the field, but, don't actually work in it at the moment. It's a very neat thing, I guess. But, so if we were to look at Spyro's second so we're going to look at the second-to-second loop first, because that is the thing that's just constantly happening. Or specifically Spyro 3. So we're going to say explore level. Explore level, defeat enemies. And I know I put it in a different order, but it's still basically the same thing. Defeat enemies. And this is where I'm going to kind of split it up here. So we're going to say collect gems. But also find dragon eggs. And then we're just going to have them basically loop back into the same point here at the start. So, as I said earlier with the Mario Brothers gameplay loop, like, it doesn't have to be, like, that entirely linear. You can have, like, little mini loops branching off, or you can have, like, split paths and whatnot for a gameplay loop. If there's, like, something radically different that kind of takes place. And I suppose I may be a little bit, I may be being a little bit silly in my thinking here, because, there's always room to be a little bit silly with one's thinking. I guess, in a way, there's another thing that could happen. And in the context of Spyro the Dragon 3, if you were around for my playthrough, then you would understand very well what I'm talking about when I'm going to start talking about this. But just in case you don't, I'm more than happy to explain things. Sorry, my attention's wandering. But basically, within Spyro 3, you didn't just play as Spyro. In some instances, you could play as other characters. You could play as Sheila, the kangaroo. You could play as Sergeant James Bird, Bentley the A, or you could play as Agent 9. You had basically 4 other characters. Also Sparks. Also Sparks had his own levels too. So you could basically play as 5 other characters within this game. And I always loved that about Spyro 3. Since I was younger, I've always loved it about that game. But in terms of like exploring the level, like this could be like within like a hub world, or this could be within like a level as well where you could find one of these other doors. We could have it branch off like this and say find character segment. But then we could also have it branch back into the main level. Oh wait, no, we don't actually want this to be here. We want it to branch off of, you know, where, you know, the character segment ends. And while I'm not going to have, like, multiple playable characters, at the very least, I don't think I will. This is a good way of, like, a good example of, like, having loops, like, mini loops within a gameplay loop as well. It's good point of, like, illustrating this. So, I'm going to say, okay, remove the select, and we're going to say find character segment, and in this character segment we're just going to have basically the same thing as the main loop. We're going to say explore segment, defeat enemies, and then also collect gems, and also collect eggs. And we're going to have this, you know, circle back here, but we could also have them, like... Hold on a minute. I just realized the shape. I just realized the shape that I have made here. God damn it. I was about to connect the two things back to explore level, and then I realized what shape I've made with this like extentless loop extending off of the main loop. Do I need to say it out loud, or do I need to illustrate it? Because I feel like illustrating it is kind of bad. If I zoom it out, like, it's kind of spread out. It's balls. It's balls. It looks like balls. It looks, to me, at the very least, it looks like balls. I have inevitably... Yeah, far too spread, I know, but still. I didn't think about this when I was making this gameplay loop. But yeah, so we have the start of the gameplay loop, we have the explore level, and maybe they find a character segment near the start of the level, who knows? I mean, they never are, but you defeat enemies, collect gems, go back here, and if we find, like, the other character segment, we go here, we explore this segment, we defeat enemies, and we basically do the same thing that we would be doing in the main loop, but, you know, more condensed within this area. And then once, like, things are done here, we just go back to the main level, and so on and so forth. And it's kind of similar, in a way. So we're going to shrink this down, just so I can make room for the minute-to-minute. I'm also going to move this up a little bit more, and also a little bit to the right. Also, I'm aware that I'm spending quite a bit of time on this, but quite a bit of time on this, but this is important. This is important to point out. So we have the second to second. We're next going to go for the minute to minute. I didn't mean to write mint. Minute to minute. To be fair, you could make minute sound like mint if you say it really quickly. That's all I'm gonna say. You could make it sound like you can make minutes sound like mint if you say it really quickly. So explore hub. Hub. Explore hub. Find collectibles. To be fair, I could have also just say find collectibles there. And I'm not really being consistent with my logic, so I'm going to split them up again. So find gems. And also have find eggs here. Because I know they play into like the same like requirement stuff for unlocking levels, but play level. And I guess, like, it's not gonna be the exact same, I realize, because, like, exploring the character segment or finding the character segment is completely different to the, like, within, like, a level itself than, you know, just freeing the character, because then that just becomes its own level. So, in the minute-to-minute, I guess, within the hub, so, explore the hub, play level, la-di-da-di-da. I also should say complete level as a part of this loop too. So, silly me. Complete level. Move on to that one. And then here, bypassing like find gems and find eggs, we'll say free character. Because if you remember from the playthrough, then you'll understand this, but if you don't know this, then in the context of Spyro 3, the other characters that you can play as are initially trapped in cages by Moneybags. He's an asshole. You will not like him if you ever play Spyro 3 or Spyro 2. More so in Spyro 2 because he essentially gatekeeps or paywalls your abilities and moves and whatnot. But so free character and then play the level, because most likely when you free that character, you'll just want to play their level, get it out of the way, and then you don't need to backtrack to other levels that you'll have completed, like, once you unlock them after playing said levels. Except for certain cases where that's basically mandatory, which is a good chunk of the game. Anyway, that would essentially be the minute-to-minute, I believe. And to be fair, in terms of, like, unlocking levels, that just kind of happens automatically anyway. So, you know, it's not just like a thing that essentially ends up as a requirement on the part of the loop. So that's essentially the minute to minute. And I feel like in terms of like loops themselves, depending on like what happens within your second to second compared to your minute to minute, I feel like the second to second loop is definitely has the potential to be one of the more complex gameplay or parts of the gameplay loop because of how much stuff could happen within the second to second. And then it gets less busy as you move further up. So the minute to minute could be this, and then we have the hour to hour. Oh, whoops. Oh, Control Shift Z. Whoops. So hour to hour. And this is my interpretation. I may not necessarily be correct. I may not necessarily be wrong. As I said, there's different interpretations for this kind of stuff. So hour to hour. So we have start, hub, and of course at the end of like each like hub area in Spyro 3 and also in Spyro 2, it's a little bit loose in Spyro 1, but it's also kind of not. You fight boss and then move to next hub. And I guess in a way, not just for Spyro, but for also the other example that I used being Super Mario Brothers, you could also have like a loop, like a different kind of second to second loop for the boss as well, because how that would function on a second to second, minute to minute is completely different. So that would essentially be all of that, what's happening within Spyro 3, which obviously required quite a bit more thought to try and sort of, at the very least, from my perspective, figure things out. Other people, like, in terms of, like, game design and whatnot, stream over. No, it's not stream over. Oh, that's what you mean. I'm sorry, I got confused. I'm sorry. Oh, gosh. What am I like? I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that here in the rest of chat and people watching things back. I'm sorry. But anyway, in terms of, you know, like, as I said, I may not necessarily be right, I may not necessarily be wrong. It's all down to interpretation, but this is my understanding of, like, gameplay loops and how they could possibly work. And as I said, I'm not very well practiced in trying to define or find out, like, gameplay loops. So, as I said, more practice along these lines is very helpful for me, because I feel like, overall, it could help me improve with a lot of things. So, and that's probably one of the most important things, is just being able to improve with things. But yeah, now we're going to try and identify, at the very least, the second to second loop for this project. So, at the moment, we're still going to write the I guess the code name for it's just going to be called Rat Platformer here. So Rat Platformer here. So gameplay loops. And I'm going to save this one. Ratformer. Yeah, the Ratformer. I'm gonna save this this picture because this is gonna be helpful for me. So I'm just gonna say Rat Platformer gameplay loops. That's what this one's gonna be called. What is a platformer? Okay, don't, that, don't, you... I'm sorry, I didn't mean to draw an F that looked like a T. There. Platformer. There. Anyway, gameplay loops. We're going to do the second to second first. So I'm going to make a layer. Yeah, because I don't do, like... Oh, before you... Ah, yeah. But yeah, we're gonna make a layer for the second to second. Because if I separate this into layers, at the very least, I can, like, hide them and draw, like, the other loops and say, oh yeah, and slowly reveal them bit by bit if I ever need to do something fancy with that kind of stuff. So... I mean, defining the second to second loop, as I said, if we're using, like, the Spyro games as a basis, then it would be fairly simple to do. So if we say explore level, and then, as I said, like, there could be, like, little mini loops that are encompassed within, like, different parts of the loop. So if we say explore the level, then we have, like, all, say, like, the interactions, the wall jumping and everything. Then we defeat enemies. And then, at the moment, I don't have, like, the different types of collectibles defined. So at the moment, we'll just say, find collectibles. And then there. And at its core, that's essentially, like, a very simplified, like, version of what the gameplay loop for the rat platformer would look like. And if I need to, like, expand on things a bit, so if I say I actually wanted to define what happens within explore level, then I can do that. So if I was to move it over here... Hold on a moment. Wait, let me think a moment. But looking into things a bit more for gameplay loops and everything, a lot of it really is, Oh. Right. New music. I like Cloud Spires as a level. The funny little Cloud Nimbus fairy things and the fucking weird ass cloud when you manage to ring the bells and the sun seed with the sunglasses. Oh gosh. But basically, okay, hold on. Okay, my attention was wandering. The one thing that I do see repeated among people is that, oh, the phrase rinse and repeat is very useful when talking about gameplay loops, because it's the thing that the player essentially tends to do repeatedly, either with little or no variation. And while it definitely helps out a lot more when looking at, say, casual/mobile games, because a lot of those are designed with the intention for the player to just, you know, repeatedly do the same thing over and over with little to no change, it can still be applied to older games or some modern games as well, because it's useful to understand the loop of what the player is doing. And another thing that I see people talking about as well is how, like, the separation between game mechanics and gameplay loops is that, like, with gameplay loops, it's what the player is doing. With game mechanics, of course, it's how things work. It's how things are done. So, how is the angle for a wall jump calculated? How do we determine whether or not the player is able to air dash? Does the current stomp kill an enemy or destroy an object? That's, like, along the lines of, like, the talk of mechanics. Whereas the loops themselves just talk about, oh, this is what the player is doing. So they're exploring the level, they're finding collectibles, they're defeating enemies, and then, in a way, that could just be a sub-loop. Like, it could be a sub-loop, or it could be just, like, that's the second, and then the minute-to-minute kind of incorporates that. It's a bit, I guess, it's kind of nebulous in a way, but it's an odd thing. It's an odd thing, because it's very flexible, I suppose. But in terms of second to second, this essentially serves as a very simple definition of what happens within the game and what the player is doing. So, we have, like, exploring the level, we have defeating the enemies, but at the moment, we do not have finding collectibles. We don't have, like, gems and, like, equivalents to gems and eggs from Spyro 3. We do not have, like, cheese kind of stuff yet. We do not have that kind of stuff in this project yet. So yeah, cheese would definitely be, like, probably the easiest thing to, like, have a collectible be. But I don't know, like, if I was to sort of go into things again, and I'm going to make a separate, window for this as well, because, I don't know. It's just easier having another window open. So, for the collectibles, if we were to look first at Spyro, or hell, we could also look at Super Mario 64. Either one works. Either one fits this bill. So if we were to say common, so say we have common collectibles, you should look into what diets pet rats have and what they like, and then call. Oh yeah, no, I could. Good point, actually. And the critical collectibles. So we're going to have common collectibles, and we're going to have critical collectibles. So if we were to say SM64 as this first layer, so common collectibles, we have coins. And then for critical collectibles, we have the power stars. Okay, and I guess also in a way, like the keys that you get from, like, fighting Bowser as well are critical collectibles, so we're gonna have keys. So we have keys and power stars for critical collectibles, and we have coins for common collectibles. And coins themselves, in a way, because of the 100 coin challenges, they do contribute to power stars in a way. But then they also contribute to, like, filling up Mario's life meter whenever he gets hurt. But, yeah, that's for Super Mario 64. I'm also going to use Banjo-Kazooie as a good example, like the original Banjo-Kazooie, not Banjo-Tooie, as an example of this, because I feel like I also somehow joined the J up to the N, and that just formed, like, a capital N. Yeah. Because we have quite a few. Ban. Ban! So, in terms of common collectibles, we have the music notes. So we have the notes. We have the notes as the very common collectible. Although they are still very important, less so than Jiggies, first off. So first off, we have Jiggies. Also, I didn't know how I was going to draw the Jinjos from the front from memory. So drawing them from the side kind of all, like, hieroglyphics-like. So we have Jinjos, we have Jiggies, and I guess, in a way, like, the little honeycomb-like pieces work as critical collectibles too. So we have the honeycomb pieces, right? So in Banjo-Kazooie, we have notes as the common. However, for critical collectibles, we have honeycomb pieces, which are good for, you know, increasing Banjo's max health. We have Jinjos, which contribute to just completion overall. And then we have Jiggies, which are very necessary. What defines critical? Basically, very important collectibles. So, say things that you need to open other levels, or open other areas, or things that contribute to overall completion. I know notes are very important to, you know, being able to unlock other parts of Gruntilda's lair in Banjo-Kazooie, but unless you're gunning for essentially 100% completion, you don't need to get absolutely every single one. You can just get, like, the bare minimum of what is needed to, like, open note doors, and that's about it. But Jiggies are very important for actually accessing more levels. And I believe, yeah, Jinjos are still fairly important, because I feel like that's... And they're not very common. There's like 5... Yeah, oh yeah, no, actually, yeah, Mumbo Skulls would be common too. And I guess anything related to, like, abilities that require, like, Kazooie to use. So, like, the air... Oh, I'll draw the feather. I'll draw feathers. So say, for example, like, the feathers, the eggs. To be fair, it's different type. It's like eggs, and then the different types of feathers and stuff as well. And then, so, Kazooie stuff. I'm just going to call it this category Kazooie stuff. I did the F that looks like a T again. Sorry. So, for all intents and purposes, this does have quite a few more, like, collectibles and whatnot. Then, if we were to look at Spyro 3 as my, my ever-present example that I follow. Oh yeah, the lives trophies too. I can't fit any more here, but we'll just add a note saying lives trophies. Because they're not too common, but you still find them within levels. But yeah, so for Spyro 3, have gems, of course, they're the very common one. And they are important for opening levels, but they're also like, you don't, as I said, unless you're gunning for absolute completion, which I guess if you're wanting to get the true ending of the game, then you kind of want to get absolutely every single gem. You don't need to get every single gem, but you do need a lot of them. It's the same with eggs, but eggs are more mission critical collectibles. What would red coins in Mario 64 count as? Because they're for a star. Actually, good point. I think red coins. So I think red coins would fall under critical. We'll just add shading to this and say red coin, because they are intrinsically linked to power stars, or at least one power star per level or per course. Yeah, blues are still fairly common, and they count as like a good number of coins, so they still file under like regular coins. So critical ones for Spyro 3 would be the dragon eggs. See, it's also kind of interesting to look at, the different, like, collectibles for each game and, like, understand, oh yeah, some games are, like, fairly simple with things. You have a small number of things that you can find, like, within levels, and they may not necessarily contribute to, like, completion or progression within the game itself, but they're still, like, there. Whereas you have, like, so much else, like, other titles where they just have a very small number of, like, common and critical collectibles. So we have gems, we have dragon eggs. What's the key in critical? The boss keys. You know the keys that you get from beating Bowser in, like, any of the Bowser stages outside of... Yeah. So any of the Bowser stages outside of, the final level, that is essentially what I would call a critical collectible as well, because you need those. Yeah, for the basement and the first. Yeah. Those things, yeah. See, it all becomes clear. There we go. And I guess, in a way, butterflies in Spyro 3 would be a common one as well. Whether that's, like, the extra lives ones, or just the ones you get for Sparks' health. So, butterflies, gems... And if we were looking at Spyro 2, we wouldn't have the dragon eggs. We'd have talismans, and also, I believe they're called power. I think they're called. Hold on, let me just refresh my memory. Or is it orbs? Oh yeah, no, I was wrong. It was, so Because kind of weirdly enough, Spyro 2 is kind of different. I say kind of different. It's very different in terms of like some of how some of its collectibles are handled. Because you still have gems. However, in terms of critical collectibles, you don't have dragon eggs. You have talismans, which you need to get from each of the worlds, also from each level. However, there's also orbs that you need to get as well, which are also important for progression, and also if you're going for the full completion of the game, then they're necessary as well. Talismans are just a given. You need them to progress, like through the main story, the main game. But to access like the final bonus level after you beat the game, then you 100% need to get every single orb. Gems and butterflies still exist. However, a weird thing that they do in Spyro 2 is instead of enemies dropping gems, enemies will like drop these little weird soul things that unlock like power-ups within some stages. It's super weird. It's super weird. But with Spyro 3, it's a bit less so. We have the dragon eggs, we have the gems, we have the butterflies. And in some ways, that's pretty much it. Which is not too bad. So, back to the point I was making. As I said, I do not know what like collectibles I want to have for this game. And okay. Right. Also, ad break in a few minutes for people in chat. I'm looking at what this says. Like, I'm looking at this article. This may not be the most reliable source, but I'm looking at. Oh wait, no, this is the RSPCA, so this may actually be credible for understanding the diet for a pet rat, so I know what collectibles to include. I may actually be right in using cheese as, like, the critical collectible, because the thing that it says about rats and cheese is that rats do like sweet and fatty food, such as dairy and cheese and whatnot, but it can cause health problems if they eat too much of it. So, having that be, like, the collectible that's used for progression, and not be the things that you can just find littered everywhere on the ground, is probably a good thing. Yeah, it's bad for their diet, but they love it. Yeah. That's me learning some things. Also, it says, like, for a rat's diet, so small amounts of fruits, vegetables, cooked egg, grains, and seeds. Give these as part of their daily food allowance, not in addition to it, or it could cause obesity or health problems. So, of course I can't just say, give them grapes and whatnot, because they can't eat onions, citrus fruits, walnuts, rhubarb, grapes, raisins, and chocolate. What fruits can rats eat? So, apples without... There's a list of rat-friendly fruit and veg below. Oh, right. Although the weird thing is that, like, from the stuff I found, they say avoid giving them seeds. Like, remove seeds from apples. Oh wait, no, it's those seeds in particular, probably. Apple seeds, because they can be bad to swallow. Because, apple seeds are not good. Because I believe that they can be poisonous. I might be fully wrong. Oh yeah, ad break again. Pop that there. I'm not gonna go on a mini break during this ad break, but I won't go through too much. I'm also going to save this so I can actually keep these down as notes. So, rat platformer collectibles. That's what I'm going to call this. I'm gonna note now, this is a funny little educational experience for me, understanding what a rat's diet is. They're like bird seed, sunflower, pumpkin, flax, and ooh! This is a fun little educational experience for me. This is funny. Like, you know, among others, but those are pretty easy to get. But yeah, they are fairly common. Especially like bird seeds and sunflower seeds. The way I think about it, like buying bird seeds, like if you have birds that you take care of, and then you also just have like a pet rat, it's twofold, because you can like feed the birds that you take care of like seeds, but then if you have any bird seeds left over, you can just give them to your pet rat. Apparently also peanuts, but those can be bad for diet too. Oh yeah, because peanuts can be kind of fatty. At least from my understanding. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna go with the fruit angle for, like, the little, like, common collectibles. I don't know if I want to rotate, like... Actually, that might actually be pretty neat. I'll probably, like, illustrate this when I actually, like, get down to brass tacks, but... Like, once the ad break ends, I'll go over things. Once chat's all back and ready. Anyway, ads are over. Welcome back, chat. Anyway, so there was a thing I noted on the ad break, which I will share with people who just got back. I feel like it's pretty useful, like, if you have birds that you take care of, but also a pet rat, that buying bird food is kind of, like, bird seed is kind of twofold, because you can feed the birds, like, whatever, like, their seeds, and if you have, like, bird seed left over, you could just probably give that to your rat as part of their diet too, which is pretty neat. But, yeah. I also remarked that, peanuts would probably be pretty bad, because I know, as far as I'm aware of, that peanuts can be pretty fatty, so of course that would, you know, it wouldn't bode well for them. But anyway, I'm going to share, like, my ideas for stuff. So, in terms of the rat platformer collectibles. So again, we're gonna have our critical one, which is the cheese. So we're gonna say we're gonna draw the cheese, and we're gonna have, you know, the funny, like, cartoony kind of, like, Swiss cheese type stuff. And probably just, like, have, like, a little nibble taken out of it. But again, an idea that I had potentially for this, and this may not, you know, work. I'd say it may not work. It will work, but this may or may not be, you know, like, it may make things a bit varied. Like, rather than every cheese having, like, the same model, like, make multiple cheese models, and then randomize on load. So when the level loads in, like, there will be, like, a standard one that, you know, obviously sort of allows me to place things, but when, like, the game or level is loaded, the appearance of those cheeses will just be randomized to, like, one of a few different models. And the reason why I'm doing this is because it's not like they're gonna have, like, proper colliders anyway. The one thing that's really needed is, you know, the overlap to basically say, oh yeah, the players overlapped with cheese. We're going to add this cheese to the number of cheeses that they have collected, and we're also going to hide this or just despawn it. Which, you know, it's simple enough. It's simple enough. Then for the common ones, I don't know what to do for, like, lives, because I know we'll have lives and whatnot, this being a collectathon, but I don't know what to make the collectible for lives, because in a messed up, like, reverse, like, twisted kind of way, a funny life would be a rat, like, a pest trap, but that would, like, a little rat trap, but that wouldn't be funny here. So I don't know what would constitute a good, like, collectible for a life. I don't know for a rat. But in terms of, like, the common ones, we'd say we'll probably just do fruit. And then we could sort of, like, alternate between, like, an apple, a pear, like, and a peach as well. So we could alternate between, like, these little free models for, like, the fruit collectible, because, you know, they're kind of roughly within, like, very similar / the same size dimension. And then, of course, as the, like, the same thing as with the cheeses, they just have, like, the overlap, and then they just get collected and then hidden / deleted when the player collects them. Probably hidden, so he, like, if we're big idea, go on. I am all ears. Please, as an... Actually, good point. Good point. I'd probably also want to make a thing for enemies as well. So, I'm going to make one now. Call it... I'm going to save it. Call it Rat Platformer. And then... enemies. And then... Like, they probably won't look like this in actuality, but I'm using this as a simple representation. Probably, like, giant cats as, like, a giant enemy as well for rats. I'm going to make it an evil cat. Snakes, birds, and fox. Ooh! And of course, again, not what they're going to actually look like, but this is just for illustration, making sure, like, they're there. To be fair, it's a good thing that I actually made flying enemies when I was, like, you know, testing out, like, AI stuff, because that could constitute bird enemies. So, he's cute. I like it. Bird. Is it kind of bad that I'm not good at drawing foxes from memory? Hmm. Just going to give it very long whiskers. Oh yeah, no, yeah. Nighttime levels for owl. Yeah! Foxes have, like, fuzzy cheeks. Yeah, they do. Hmm. Like, I know, like, I do want to make this look like at least properly representing a fox, so I'm gonna give it a little bit of, I'm gonna get rid of this at the very least. Like, it's already kind of, like, chubby, but I want to make it, like, fuzzy. But it is more triangle like cats, but bigger. I think this works. I'm just gonna shorten it to rat former in this drawing. Yeah. So we got fleas, cats, birds, snakes, foxes, just to name a few. Cool. So we got some of the collectibles done, and then we have all of my little other little explanation thingamajiggies, because it's awesome and cool to have them. Honestly, getting some more of like the design / detail points ironed out, actually, good feeling, honestly. Like, no kidding. I'm actually kind of glad I took time to do this stuff today on stream, because I guess, in a way, this was kind of, like, fuzzy in my head for the longest time, but actually, you know, going through some of the details and ironing it all out makes it a whole lot clearer for me. I mean, that's the whole point of it, but I've just, for the most part, aside from, like, some little bits of planning, I've kind of been flying by the seat of my pants for everything. So it's kind of crazy to actually take the time to do things. But yeah, I think I'm going to call things there for today, because it is now 1 a.m. and I know we started late, but just for the sake of it, it is 1 a.m. So, you know, usual stream time ending. So yeah, to everyone who showed up today and everyone watching things back on the VOD, whether it's here on Twitch or on YouTube, depending on when you're watching this, thank you ever so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Tomorrow, I'm still undecided on what to do tomorrow. As I said in the Discord, I'm a little bit torn on what I want to stream. I did list some options for what I could do, so you know, I'll probably have it all decided before I announce what I'm doing for the stream on Twitter. But yeah, again,